The 31st of October 2025, you're very welcome back to Real True Education, Not Fake News. Nanny stayed with or without guns. It was a wet day, a lot of rain. Land is very wet, but it's very mild and you could really do without heating in a house. You'd only need very little heating. And it's about 11 p.m. I've been to town, got my lift in and my lift home, and I had that organised, and was in 3 pubs. I had a good old crack, mainly finding out who's married to who's that husband is, who's she, where's the daughter married, that sort of stuff that you like to know about your community. And it's not really nosy stuff, it's just who's who and who's that. And particularly when you're away from your locality for a while, it's nice to catch up with how events turned out. And most of it's all good, very good news. And one of the things I notice is that people who didn't join the Gardaí like I did seem to have worked in industries and everything else, but while they were doing that, they had little things going which blossomed into major industries themselves. And so that's good. That's good. Now, a wee bit inebriated. I had a few drinks, so you understand that it'll be a chance to see me with a few drinks on board. Very nice, all in the best possible taste, and a bit of fun and a bit of crack and good old chat. Now, and a bit of music as well. Now, one of the things about it is this. In the present world, whether we're right or wrong, or whether we're told right or wrong, we're told we have to be preparing for war. WRR. And the Germans are getting ready for war, and they're starting to indoctrinate their kids for war. They tell us that Russia, if they're let loose, will take over all of Europe. But this time they're finding that the communist Russia was a scare. It did scare the Irish people and the British people a bit. But the Putin Russia is not quite as communist. It seems to be more capitalist. In fact, it seems to be more capitalist than Europe. So people are a bit confused. So you have the media on shouting about this, that and the other. But in the event, the Irish people and the British people and the French people will make up their own minds. But the one thing that we can be certain of is that the election of Catherine Connolly in Ireland proves we are 75% a nanny state. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Nannyism is the modern Western ideology. Whether you go to the United States, Canada, Britain, Ireland, or Europe, the nannies are in control. Ursula von der Leyen is a nanny. All her policies are nanny. They have, I see there tonight, where Qatar, which exports a lot of LPG, liquid petroleum gas, to Europe, is now faced with having to fill in a whole heap of documents as to the source of the gas, whether they employed gay people, whether they had windmills, whether they had solar panels. And Qatar has more or less told Europe, don't want to know you. If you don't want to buy our gas, hump off. So that's nannyism at the biggest measure. But Ireland is the nannyist. Is there? Oh, how would you pronounce that? Nannyist. NANNYISSISST. It's the nannyist of them all. And the reason Catherine Connolly did so well in a battle with Heather Humphreys is when Heather Humphreys was nanny enough, fairly nanny, she wasn't nearly as nanny as Catherine Connolly. So what is the name you put for it? There's a capitalist state, there's a communist state, there's a liberal state, there's a libertarian state. What is the name for a nanny state? Is it nanny? Please, some of you help me. I'm stuck. I can't come up with a word for it. Right, a nanny state. I don't know. Nanny. I'm just stuck. I can't come up with it. Now, one of the areas we see then is when the nanny state gets everything going, it has all its men marrying men, and all its women marrying women, and all the men marrying men, adopting kids and rearing them and teaching them to be gay, and all the women marrying women and telling them they have to be lesbian or gay, and all this completely crazy mixed up world. You want to hear the song, and one of my favourite songs is the Kinks' Lola. I might post it underneath. I met her in a great on pain, and we drank all night with my Nola. I'm telling you, and the devil understand why she walks like a woman and talks like a man. Why she talks like a why? I don't man, my Lola. Oh, Lola, Lola. Anyway, I'm not particularly poking fun at transvestites and gay people, but it's a feature. And Roger O'Gorman is the classic example of the old grannies. Isn't he lovely? And he kissed his boyfriend. Isn't he lovely? We all vote for him. But the point about it is, the nanny state refuses to accept that we're in a competitive world. And if you create a political or a military vacuum, someone else will occupy it. And we see that big time with the present situation in the world, where where President Donald Trump, is not nanny state. He tries to be capitalist. He tries to be conservative. But there's 44% of the people in America, including the Irish, voted nanny. Kamala Harris, oh, I'm nanny, nanny, nanny. I mean, we used to have a word for a female goat long ago. A male goat was a puck goat, and a female goat was a nanny goat. And she's a nanny goat. All she knows is nanny, nanny, nanny. And Tim Walsh was picked because he put tampons in boys' toilets. He didn't tell them how to use them. I'd love to hear if anyone knows how a boy uses a tampon. A tampon. Tampax, Tim. That's really what you have, and men and women's sports and all this stuff. Well, while you go down that road with your society, you're really in a situation where you're in the collapse of an empire. And the United States empire is in a state of collapse. And it's not the case that Trump's no good and Kamala Harris is no good either. It's a case that Kamala Harris was a total disaster, totally a walkover, a stupid idiot. And the Democratic Party are stupid idiots. And Trump is not. Trump is trying to do his best. But it's not enough. The rot is too bad. The slide into oblivion is too slippery. That no matter what Trump does, he cannot check it. It's not that Trump is not doing a good job. He can't do it. If he can't do it, I can tell you nobody else will do it. Now, over here in Europe, it's big time nanny as well, and they're full flat out. So then the next thing is Putin invades the Ukraine, and he took over the Crimea, and they did nothing. They hoped it'd go away. So why didn't they act against Putin at that stage? Or why didn't they negotiate a bit with him? No, they hadn't. They're just the light. It was a case of the lights being on and nobody being home. Now, I turned off the light over there. Now, in Switzerland years ago, you'd be fined if you didn't own a rifle. You had to keep and you had to keep it with you at all times to deter Hitler. It wasn't to deter NATO or the West, it was to deter Hitler. So you could be fined, but that kind of died out. Now, in my upbringing, I was a policeman and we used guns all the time. But I have to admit, I always enjoyed the use of guns, and always had at least 2 licensed guns in my possession at all times, properly licensed with safes and all, and using them. And I would have fired millions of rounds of ammunition. When I went to Dublin as a young Garda, I was promoted as sergeant and was sent down to the border in Scottstown. And by pure luck, I discovered that the land around Scottstown in North Monaghan was creeping with rabbits. I don't think it is now. There was millions of rabbits. So I had a .22 rifle and I got some fun. I used to shoot up to 140 maybe an evening. I'd clean them out and I'd bring them to Dublin the next day and they'd be on sale in Wexford Street in Dublin as fresh Wicklow rabbits. And the rifle was very accurate and very suitable for shooting rabbits. And I got some enjoyment. I mean, if I had to live my life again, that was a great thing. If I had to stay at home, I'd never know that all that good shooting was down there. Thousands of rabbits, and you select the young ones when they be coming on. They call them grazers. Now the thing is, shooting was always part of my life. I always did clay pigeon shooting, and very average shot, but it's for the fun and the enjoyment and the mixing with people, including many Gardaí and many superintendents in the Gardaí who all enjoyed going for a shot, and I was a member of the Garda clay pigeon shooting club. I also shot game. Now I have to admit, what happens is when you get to my stage, you begin to get a bit soft and you don't want to shoot too much game and you want to be a conservationist, and there's not nearly as many pheasants as there used to be in Ireland, so we only shoot a certain amount. But I do shoot a lot of grey crows. I do shoot some foxes to keep the population balanced, and I do shoot some other species, and I do some snipe and that to test me, but only a small amount, and I always eat everything I shoot. At the moment, I share a dog with somebody. I don't have a dog. I have a cat, but she's not up to that. But the point is, it's €80 for 3 years to have my shotgun, and it's €80 for 3 years to have the rifle. And by right, I'd need two rifles. I'd need a centerfire rifle and a .22 rifle, a .22 rimfire rifle, or even a good air rifle. But it's €80 every 3 years. That's a lot. So the result is you don't really buy many guns, and that's exactly what the government wants. They don't want many guns. Now, when it comes to two areas, one is handguns, which you could say are not necessarily needed, and some of the high-powered handguns wouldn't be needed, but it would be nice to have maybe a revolver, a Ruger revolver, or a Ruger semi-automatic pistol, because it tests your ability to shoot. And there was a time when I was out shooting with my rifle. It'd be nice to have some kind of a handgun to make it more difficult. When you get your 30 or 40 rabbits for the evening, you could go up and shoot a few with a more difficult gun to hit. But we weren't allowed those guns. They're banned in Ireland. The other thing is that the old muzzle loading guns, the black powder guns with the percussion cap, like the Colt Navy, the Colt Army, the Remington Navy, the Remington Army, the Spiller and Burr, and Rogers and Spencer. Some of those guns are being made in Italy and still made in Italy and are hugely popular in the United States. Now, it takes you 20 minutes to load the 6 cylinders in one and put caps on the nipples and all. They won't let you have them. The other thing is that when it comes to rifles, if it has a bore above .22, they don't want to hear from you. So, whereas the muzzle-loading rifles, the old flintlocks, that you'd be all night, you'd take you 20 minutes to pack the powder down, put in the ball, put on your flint and everything else, but it'd be fierce challenging and fierce interesting. They won't entertain you at all, and they don't want to see you with gunpowder at all, even though the gunpowder is not any more powerful than petrol, and the troubles in the north are well and truly over. Guns are the word that cannot speak their name, whereas in America it's the Second Amendment to the Constitution. They're guaranteed. So nannyism has almost crippled the gun trade. It's really just surviving with an odd gunsmith here and there, and it's regulated to the 99s. But the point about it is, if we are expected to become military, if we're expected to fight the Russians or fight the Chinese, they can't expect to say to us, you cannot have any guns except under our terms. You join the army, we'll give you guns under our terms. We will not join for that because we are the victims of over restriction. Now, I'm not against proper restriction, people with mental illnesses and all that. The Gardaí do a very good job on that. They don't do too bad. I have no issue with that. But the point is, they strictly forbid certain firearms. Now, I don't want a machine gun. I don't want a Browning 50 caliber machine gun. I wouldn't give you tuppence. We had Uzi machine guns in the Gardaí made in Israel, and if you're giving me one for nothing, I wouldn't take it. A loaded junk, an inaccurate old thing, it fired from the open bolt. I wouldn't have it. I have no interest in it at all. But I'm interested in precision shooting and bird shooting, and always was for a lifetime. And right through my period as a member of the Guards, I was always involved in the Garda Gun Club and other local gun clubs, and big time in that way. So you can't have it both ways. The nanny state will leave me that I'll only be allowed certain firearms. Okay, that's the way you want your nannies, off you go. But don't expect me to endorse any war or any battle or any army, or to come in and advise on target shooting, sniping, or anything else. No. If you don't trust me to have the basic ordinary guns, then you don't expect me to reciprocate. In America, we don't want the American situation totally, but it's the way they look at it in Ireland is we don't want guns at all. The amount of firearms, I remember checking about 20 years ago, there was over 450,000 firearms licensed in Ireland. Each gun has to have a license. It's now 294. It's now 294,000. It's down a big amount because they've crippled the industry. They've left it impossible to get permits. They treat everyone as suspicious. And they nearly have it now that if a young man or a young woman, and women do shoot, if a young man or a woman announces or talks in pleasant company, oh, I shoot, that's my hobby, you're condemned. You can't have it both ways. The point is, in Russia, you can have private firearms properly licensed by the police, and you can have them in Ireland to an extent. In Britain, it's almost crippled. You nearly can have nothing. But in Ireland, it's not just too bad. But you can't have it both ways. If you want your nanny state, have your nanny state. I'm content to live in it and do without whatever tools of my trade and my enjoyment there are. I'll do without it. But I will not fight for you, and I will not recommend anyone fight for you. We need a proper overhaul of the firearms licensing system. We need a proper liberalisation of it. We need an examination of it. Imagine that an old flintlock rifle with a big long barrel, a copy of the old American War of Independence, with a flint. You have to load it down the barrel, you have to put down a ball and all, and they're very interesting, and you have a big flint. You can only fire about one shot every 3 minutes. That's flat out. They're banned in Ireland. You cannot have them. And the same with anything, because the law in Ireland says it's the bore, it's the width of the bore. If the bore is over .22 caliber, no, you can have them under certain circumstances, but it's very exacting. In other words, if you want a rifle of, we'll say, .308, you have to prove you're shooting deer and you're doing certain target shooting, and you're a member of a club. I don't want to join any club. I have a farm. I like to enjoy my guns, and I do enjoy them. We do have a clay pigeon shoot here around the Christmas. Great, have fun. Trap, people come around, bring their guns, and we have a bit of shot. And then I have the rifles for target shooting and seeing how accurate I can get it. We're not allowed to reload ammunition, where you're into very, very precise amounts and all of that. That's all banned. And we can't have handguns, so we can't check how we perform with a shorter barreled handheld weapon. All that's banned. What? By whom? By the nannies. And the Minister for Justice is nanny-led. So if you want your nannies, folks, and I'm sure you do, you can have your nannies, but you ain't going to have us. And I'll campaign against any military recruitment. You're going to see, in my humble opinion, maybe not before the Christmas now, because we're past the 1st of November. It's now probably near the 1st of November. You're going to see campaigns for the Navy, the Army, and the Air Corps in Ireland. And my advice is, we'll have nothing to do with it. If you want us to fight, You've got to meet us halfway. And you won't do that. You'll die before you'll give freedom and a little bit of freedom to shooters and to individual way of thinking, and let people have their way. You'll die. The new Fianna Fáil leader will probably be Jim O'Callaghan, and he will die. And he listened to all the advice by Gardaí, who are all there because they had influence with TDs, influence with everything. They are doing good work on drugs, I have to admit that, and maybe they're reformed a bit, I don't know. But the bottom line is, it's not on, or people will not accept nannyism. Nannyism is just like communism. It's a delusion. It's the delusion that if everyone's nice in Ireland, if we're nice, Catherine Condy, the president, we'll be nice, we'll be nice. But we won't give you anything. You can't get anything you want. We'll be nice. And if we're nice, the Russians will be nice, and the Chinese will be nice. Whereas human history teaches us that that's not how it goes at all. Human history teaches us that if you have valuable resources and you can't protect them with defense, somebody else is going to take them off you. And even in America, they're discovering that the Russians are not only out to take Ukraine, they're out to take Venezuela and many other places, and the Chinese are intended to push the Europeans and the Americans out altogether. So you got to get your nanny state and stuff it where the sun don't shine. Comment underneath, folks. We'll see you back. That's really it. We'll see you back soon, and comment underneath on my video. Do understand, I had a few drinks, so what about it? Comment, it doesn't matter. I'll have it reviewed before it goes up on the internet, and if it's all right, I'll put it up there. Good luck. Thank you very much. Bye.